Welcome to Griffonomics. Imagine launching a product so highly anticipated that it just absolutely flies off the shelves, like selling 17.37 million units in just its first 6 months.
Right, you're just moving absolute mountains of plastic at that point.
Exactly. I mean, your net sales basically double year over year. We're talking 12.71 billion US dollars in just a 9 month period. So by every traditional metric, you are winning.
You're crushing it.
Yeah. But your reward for this monumental, historic success, Wall Street steps in and wipes out 33% of your market value just in the blink of an eye.
It's a phenomenal disconnect. I mean, if you're looking at your portfolio right now, taking a 33% drop on the heels of record sales, it looks terrifying. It completely defies conventional market logic.
Okay, let's unpack this. Because how does a company double its sales and lose a third of its market value? Today, our mission in this deep dive is to explore Nintendo's fundamental transition. We have this granular strategic report and an investment roadmap, and we're looking at how they are shifting from just, an iterative hardware manufacturer into a massive IP-driven transmedia powerhouse.
Yeah, and to really grasp that transition, we have to look at the three massive macroeconomic hurdles that are, well, basically pulling their stock down right now. You've got the AI tax, the yen trap, and this truly bizarre retail pricing collapse.
Right.
But we also need to explore why, despite all of that downward pressure, institutional smart money is actively accumulating this stock right now. They're betting heavily on a massive 2027 supercycle.
Let's start with the immediate paradox, though. The Switch 2 had incredible initial hardware sales. I mean, selling over 17 million units in 6 months is just staggering, especially when you consider that the legacy Switch, the original one, it only sold 3.25 million units in its first 6 months. Right, exactly.
So people clearly wanted the new box. The demand was there. If the problem isn't moving the hardware, it has to be, I guess, what people are doing with the hardware once they take it home.
And that right there is the core of the immediate crisis. Because the underlying metric that drives the entire video game industry is the attach rate.
The attach rate.
Yeah, that number tells us how many games the average consumer buys per console they own. Hardware is just the razor, the software is the razor blades. And in its first 9 months, the Switch 2's attach rate sits at a really dismal 2.18 games sold per console.
Wow, 2.18. Wait, so it's essentially becoming like an expensive dust collector.
Basically, yeah.
Consumers are buying the console, grabbing the bundled game like Mario Kart World, maybe picking up one other game, and then completely ignoring the rest of the digital store.
Yeah.
They play Mario Kart when friends come over, and then it just goes right back in a drawer. That behavior is terrible for margins. I mean, let's compare that 2.18 figure to the original Switch at the exact same point in its life cycle.
Okay.
That console had an attach rate of 3.88. Nearly 4 games per console. So that is a thriving ecosystem, right? Users are constantly engaged, they're spending money, but the current ecosystem is stalling out, and it's created this massive domino effect.
Because they aren't selling the high-margin software.
Exactly. Because those high-margin games just aren't moving, Nintendo has actually been forced to slash their Switch 2 hardware production targets by 33%.
Wow.
Yeah, dropping their manufacturing expectations from 6 million units down to just 4 million for the quarter.
Right, because if people aren't buying the games, overproducing the hardware, it creates a massive liability. You just have pallets of consoles sitting in warehouses.
Costing you money, yeah.
But why the stall? Because the original Switch was an absolute phenomenon. It feels like everyone bought games for that constantly.
Well, it comes down to something analysts are calling iteration fatigue.
Iteration fatigue.
Yeah. Think about the original Switch, or, the Nintendo Wii before it. Those were what we call blue ocean products.
Okay, meaning what?
Meaning they weren't just graphically better. They completely revolutionized how we interacted with games. The Wii gave us motion controls. The Switch gave us a seamless, hybrid, home and portable experience. There were paradigm shifts that attracted totally non-gamers.
Right. I mean, my grandmother bowled on the Wii.
Precisely. Everybody's grandmother did. But the Switch 2 is increasingly being viewed by the broader consumer base as just, well, a pro upgrade.
Ah, I see.
The screen is sharper, the load times are faster, sure, but doesn't fundamentally change the actual experience of playing a game. So the casual crowd just isn't engaging as deeply.
Okay, so if the hardware momentum is slowing down and this iteration fatigue is setting in, I mean, the Economics 101 move is pretty obvious. You cut the price of the hardware.
You would think so.
Right. You just drop the console by $50, spur broader adoption, get it into the hands of more price-sensitive consumers, and then you make up the difference by selling them a bunch of games.
That is the standard playbook. But the thing is, they are completely trapped. They
Yeah.
absolutely cannot drop the price of the hardware right now.
Why not?
And the reason why is wild because it has almost nothing to do with the video game industry. It's because of a phenomenon completely outside their control, the global AI boom.
Wait, hold on. You're losing me here. Nintendo makes video games in Kyoto. OpenAI makes chatbots in Silicon Valley.
Right.
Why would the AI boom have absolutely anything to do with my ability to get a $50 discount on a Switch 2 at Best Buy?
I know it sounds crazy, but it all comes down to the semiconductor foundries.
Ah.
Look, the global explosion of AI data centers requires millions of advanced servers to run these large language models and generative AI.
Okay.
And that explosion has created a massive vacuum in the global memory chip market.
Oh, I see where this is going.
Right. Chip makers like Samsung and Micron, they have finite manufacturing capacity. Right now, they are pivoting their factories to prioritize highly complex, high-margin, enterprise-grade AI memory chips. Because the tech giants are locked in this bidding war, and they are paying absolute top dollar for them.
Ah, so the foundries are looking at Nintendo's order for standard, consumer memory chips and pushing it to the back of the line because they can make 10 times the profit selling AI chips to Microsoft or Google.
Yes, exactly. And because supply for consumer-grade memory is suddenly so constrained, the cost has just skyrocketed. This is what the analysts are calling the AI tax.
The AI tax.
Yeah. Contract prices for DRAM, which is literally just the working memory the console needs to even turn on and run, that spiked by 90% in the first quarter of 2026.
90%.
Yeah. The specific LPDDR5X memory modules that Nintendo utilizes, those jumped 41% in cost. Even the internal storage, the 256 gigabyte NAND drives, those climbed up 8 to 15%.
Wow, okay. Here's where it gets really interesting, though, because that cost gets passed right along to the user.
Absolutely.
I was actually reading the sources about the storage expansion issue because Nintendo built the Switch 2 to use these proprietary microSD express expansion cards, right? So the system could achieve those lightning-fast SSD-like loading speeds.
It's great technology, but...
Right. But because of this memory crisis you're talking about,
Yeah.
a single 256 gigabyte expansion card has surged past $85 at retail.
Which is just brutal, and it creates incredible friction for the consumer.
Oh, definitely.
Think about it. Imagine you just bought the console. You're excited. You want to download 3 massive new digital games. You get to the digital checkout and realize, uh-oh, your internal storage is full.
And you need to go spend another $85 on a tiny piece of plastic just to hold the games you want to buy.
Right. So suddenly, you just close the store and decide not to buy those extra games at all. It feeds right back into that terrible 2.18 attach rate we talked about.
And it leaves Nintendo completely squeezed because they are, frankly, terrified of crossing that psychological $500 threshold and alienating parents. So they are holding fast to this $449 family-friendly price point.
Which is a very deliberate choice.
But because of this AI tax, their profit margins on every single console are being completely cannibalized. Every box they sell makes them significantly less money than they projected a year ago.
It's a huge problem.
Which brings up a really concerning question based on the report. Are they actually nerfing the console, like running conservative clock speeds just to mitigate heat and save on these exploding component costs?
Well, the underlying logic of those rumors definitely checks out, and it's a direct result of trying to survive that AI tax. I mean, it's just physics.
How so?
Running a processor at its maximum clock speed generates significantly more heat. Managing that heat requires elaborate, expensive cooling solutions. Vapor chambers, heavier heat sinks, faster fans.
Right, and more power.
Exactly. It draws more power, which requires a bigger battery. By intentionally capping the system's performance, essentially underclocking or nerfing it, the system runs cooler.
Oh, wow. So they can use cheaper parts.
Precisely. That allows Nintendo to use cheaper thermal components and keeps the silicon yield rates high. They are engineering the hardware to defend a really fragile profit margin without having to raise the retail price to $499.
So they're deliberately throttling their own machine just to afford the parts to build it. That's wild. Okay, so hardware margins are crushed by AI foundries, and digital sales are stalling because memory cards are $85.
Yep.
So logically, if digital storage is this huge bottleneck, consumers must be abandoning digital downloads and flocking to big box stores to buy physical game cartridges instead, right?
You would think so, but that's where we hit our next massive roadblock. The physical retail space is experiencing an absolute pricing collapse.
The retail fire sales. So I was looking at this. We are seeing major flagship first-party Nintendo titles, games like Pokemon Legends, ZA, Kirby Air Riders, and Metroid Prime 4,
Huge games.
experiencing massive 57% discounts at huge retailers like Costco and Woot. I mean, they are dropping from a premium $70 price tag down to just $30.
It's panic. Retailers operate on very tight physical margins.
Yeah.
When places like Costco have millions of dollars tied up in physical Switch 2 inventory that just isn't moving, again, because of that low attach rate, they panic.
Right. A warehouse club doesn't care about the sanctity of a video game brand.
Not at all. They care about clearing shelf space for the next season's merchandise.
Yeah.
Making room for patio furniture or whatever, so they slash prices to liquidation levels.
But think about how that fundamentally breaks the psychological trust of the consumer.
Oh, it shatters it.
If I walk into Costco and I see the new Metroid for $30, but then I go home, turn on my console, open the eShop, and see Nintendo stubbornly charging $70 for the exact same game digitally.
You feel scammed.
I feel scammed. It makes the digital store look completely predatory. Nintendo has spent years, literally decades, building this walled garden digital ecosystem where their games never drop in price, and Costco just blew it up in a weekend.
They did. It absolutely shattered their pricing integrity.
Yeah.
And the retail panic actually forced Nintendo to capitulate. They had to announce a permanent digital price drop to $60 starting in May 2026 just to bridge that psychological gap.
Which compresses their software margins right alongside their hardware margins.
Exactly. They were taking hits on both sides. But it actually gets worse.
Wait, worse? How?
Because we have to talk about the actual value of the money they are making globally. This brings us to the macroeconomic friction known as the yen trap.
Oh, right. Because Nintendo is a Japanese company based in Kyoto, but they operate as this massive global juggernaut.
Right. They generate roughly 77% of their total revenue overseas in the US, Europe, and elsewhere.
That's a huge chunk.
It is. And historically, this has been a massive financial advantage for them, strictly because of the relationship between interest rates and currency valuation. For decades, the Bank of Japan kept domestic interest rates near zero to fight deflation, and that kept the Japanese yen very weak compared to the US dollar.
Okay, so when Nintendo made a US dollar selling a game in New York and brought that money back to Kyoto, that weak yen meant the dollar converted into a massive amount of local currency.
Exactly.
The exchange rate artificially padded their balance sheet. It's almost like having a multiplier on your high score just for carrying your money back home.
That is a perfect way to look at it. But unfortunately for them, the economic landscape has violently shifted. Japan is finally experiencing real domestic inflation. And to fight it, the Bank of Japan just raised interest rates to 0.75%.
Which, I mean, that doesn't sound like a lot to an American listener used to our rates, but in Japan, that's a 30-year high.
It is a seismic shift in monetary policy. And here is why this matters to the underlying value of the company. When a central bank raises interest rates, their currency strengthens.
Okay.
So a stronger yen means that when Nintendo takes that massive 77% overseas revenue and brings it back home, it buys fewer yen. The multiplier just vanishes.
Wow.
The value of their profits effectively shrinks simply by crossing the border.
So it's just a brutal double whammy. On the manufacturing side, their costs are soaring because they are competing for memory chips in a global market hijacked by the AI boom.
Yeah.
And then on the revenue side, the actual dollars they bring home are shrinking because the Bank of Japan is tightening monetary policy. They're getting squeezed from both ends while simultaneously having to write down their software prices because of Costco.
It's the perfect storm.
No wonder Wall Street wiped out 33% of their value. I mean, looking purely at the 2026 fiscal year, it paints a very bleak picture.
It really does. On paper, it looks bad.
So why aren't investors fleeing for the hills? With production slashed, margins squeezed, games on clearance, how could anyone view this company favorably right now? And yet, looking at the report, institutional smart money recently upgraded Nintendo. They gave it a Zacks rank #1 strong buy.
Yeah, they did.
What does that even mean, and why are they buying when things look so grim?
Well, a Zacks rank is a purely mathematical quantitative system that institutional money relies on to cut through the emotional market panic. It looks strictly at earnings estimate revisions, and the math is telling them to buy.
But why? What is the math seeing that the average investor isn't?
Because institutional investors aren't looking at the 2026 noise, they are looking at Nintendo's balance sheet, and they are recognizing an absolute masterclass in strategic patience.
Okay, let's talk about that balance sheet then. The financial fortress.
Nintendo operates with the ultimate safety net. As of the end of the fiscal year, they are sitting on a cash position of $9.49 billion US.
$9.5 billion, just in cash.
Almost $10 billion in cash and cash equivalents, yeah. And critically, they operate completely self-financed with zero external debt.
Wait, zero debt? That is almost unheard of for a publicly traded tech giant.
It's incredible. And that independence changes everything. It allows them to weather macroeconomic storms that would absolutely bankrupt other hardware manufacturers. They can afford to sit in this valley of despair in 2026 without panicking or answering to angry creditors.
They just have the cash to ride it out.
Exactly. The smart money realizes that 2026 is not a failure of execution. It is a deliberate strategic reset year.
A reset year for the 2027 supercycle.
Yes.
This is where the strategy really clicks into place for me, because if your hardware attach rate is struggling, the traditional instinct in the gaming industry is to push the panic button. You rush your biggest, most anticipated games out the door to save the console's momentum.
Right, you throw everything at the wall.
But Nintendo isn't taking the bait.
No, they are showing incredible restraint. They are intentionally holding back their absolute biggest system sellers. We are talking about the next mainline 3D Mario game and the true next-generation Pokemon title. They are keeping them locked in the vault until 2027.
And the timing is just brilliant when you look at the wider industry landscape.
Oh, it's genius.
Why wait for 2027? Because they are deliberately dodging the massive gravity well of GTA 6.
Absolutely.
Grand Theft Auto the 6 is launching in late 2025 into 2026, and it's going to suck all the oxygen out of the entertainment room. It will dominate the cultural conversation, and it will empty consumer wallets. If Nintendo releases a masterpiece 3D Mario into that environment, it risks being entirely overshadowed.
It's a calculated tactical retreat. And it serves a vital dual purpose. Historically, video game consoles experience a dramatic sales slump in their third year on the market. You know, the early adopters are already on it, and the casual fans are waiting for a significant price drop.
So, by waiting to deploy Mario and Pokemon in 2027, Nintendo gives the Switch 2 a massive second wind right when hardware sales would typically plummet anyway.
Exactly. They engineer their own resurgence.
I love the analogy of a loaded spring. By taking the hit to the stock now and absorbing the AI tax and the yen trap without panicking, they are just compressing the spring. They are storing up massive potential energy to release in 2027 when the market conditions are clearer.
That's exactly how the smart money views it. It's a value play. But you still have to survive 2026.
Right.
You can't just tell shareholders, hey, check back in 18 months, we'll be fine. You need a bridge.
So how do they bridge the gap if they are holding back all the big guns?
They bridge it through a combination of highly targeted nostalgia and their broader transmedia strategy. First, to keep the core gaming audience engaged without spending an absolute fortune on R&D, they are deploying what analysts call a nostalgia bomb.
A nostalgia bomb, okay.
Yeah. Multiple industry insiders are reporting they're releasing a ground-up remake of The Legend of Zelda, Ocarina of Time for holiday 2026, which is perfectly timed for the 40th anniversary of the franchise.
Oh, wow. Ocarina of Time. That is literally the holy grail for millennial gamers.
It really is.
That's a game that defined an entire generation's childhood.
And that is exactly the demographic target. It's a calculated move designed to be a massive system seller targeted specifically at millennial parents. It pulls them onto the Switch 2 platform in 2026, establishing the install base just in time to sell them the Mario and Pokemon games in the 2027 supercycle.
So that sets up the hardware side. But the second part of the bridge is what really justifies that strong buy rating from Zacks. They're fundamentally evolving as a company.
A huge evolution.
They're shifting from being purely hardware dependent to becoming an IP-driven transmedia powerhouse. We are talking movies, theme parks, aggressive IP licensing.
And the vanguard of this new era is the upcoming 2026 Super Mario Galaxy movie,
which features Glenn Powell as Star Fox, which, by the way, is just an incredible casting choice.
It is. It's perfect.
Yeah.
But look at the financial utility of that movie. It acts as a wildly high-margin marketing engine.
How so?
Well, think about the first Super Mario Bros. Movie and the halo effect it created for the original Switch. Millions of people go to the theater,
Yeah.
kids watch the movie, fall in love with the characters, and immediately want to play the game. Parents go out and buy the hardware.
Right.
The movie itself generates hundreds of millions in box office receipts and licensing revenue, which, critically, requires zero semiconductor chips and carries absolutely no AI tax.
Oh, that's such a good point.
That pure profit offsets the hardware margin compression while simultaneously acting as a global 2-hour commercial for the Switch 2.
So if you are looking at your portfolio, wondering how to make sense of this company, it really is a masterclass in not letting short-term macroeconomic noise blind you to a company's long-term strategic moat.
Yeah.
Yes, the AI memory tax is eating their margins, forcing them to underclock their hardware. Yes, the Bank of Japan's interest rate hikes have sprung the yen trap, shrinking their overseas profits. And yes, the retail collapse at Costco broke their digital pricing model. The 33% stock drop is a completely rational reaction to that immediate noise.
But underneath that noise is a fortress.
Exactly.
They have almost $10 billion in the bank, zero debt, and a calculated intentional strategy to compress the spring in 2026 to guarantee an absolute software supercycle in 2027. They aren't failing. They are just pivoting to a much more durable business model.
Which raises one final, really provocative thought to leave you with as you evaluate the space on your own. We are watching Nintendo build universal theme parks and absolutely dominate the global box office. If this transmedia strategy becomes wildly successful, providing an incredibly high, stable revenue floor,
Right.
will there ever come a day when Nintendo outgrows the need to manufacture their own vulnerable, low-margin hardware entirely? I mean, if they can make billions licensing their IP without ever worrying about DRAM prices or data center bidding wars, why fight in the semiconductor trenches at all?
It's the ultimate endgame question. Could Mario outgrow the console?
It changes how you view the entire industry. When we started, the financial physics of this company seemed broken. Selling 17 million consoles shouldn't result in a market crash. But once you understand the invisible weight of the AI tax pulling them down, the yen trap holding them back, and that $10 billion safety net allowing them to quietly build a 2027 transmedia supercycle, suddenly the physics make perfect sense again. Risk defined. Portfolio protected.